So this day in history, April 18th, there was the beginning of a yearly tradition that Hasbro would start doing, which was the Transformers fan poll. And April 18th, back in 2013, was the first time that they opened up the poll that would later on lead to what would be Windblade. And this poll, what they asked us was they asked us to pick a faction, pick an alt mode, pick a signature weapon, pick a color scheme, and pick a personality. So obviously faction was Autobot or Decepticon. The alt mode choices were car, truck, tank, jet, spaceship, terrain beast, avian beast, meaning like something that flies, helicopter, motorcycle, or a construction vehicle. The signature weapon was blast cannon, flamethrower, sword, mace, spear, harpoon, Morningstar, Cybertronian taser, that's funny, that one,
Mm.
nunchuck, crossbow, or a long-range blaster.
No
The
one
color
wanted
scheme,
nunchucks, man.
yeah, the color scheme choices were red and black, or green and gold, kind of Power Ranger there,
Mm.
or blue and silver, or orange and white, or purple and bronze. And then the personalities choices were valiant, sneaky, a hotshot, secretive, a wild man, or grumpy. So obviously the choices went, the winning choices were it was an Autobot who was a jet, whose main weapon was a sword, whose primary color was red and black, whose personality was valiant, which led to it being Windblade. It's interesting they didn't ask they didn't ask gender with this one. I could have swore that they asked
That
gender
seems to be
also.
the second part. There
That
was a
was I
second
think that was
round.
the second one. Yeah,
Yeah, there was
the
a second
second
round.
yeah, the second round was probably it. So then, after they tallied those things, I think if I remember personally when I did this vote, I think I put something that was beast. I think I was asking for a beast, and then I don't remember what I asked for the weapon or the color scheme, but I remember specifically asking for an Autobot beast just because I wanted another Beast Wars character because I knew this was going to be used in the classics line.
Oh, okay, okay.
So I was kind of like, oh, I'd really like another beast character, an original one. So then, when obviously they tabulated those, a couple of weeks later, they did the second round, and then they asked us to name the character, pick its gender, pick its origin, like what city or planet or whatever it came from, and then a specialty ability. So obviously, the name choices were Eclipse, Charon, Centurion, which is interesting because they took that from another Hasbro line, Cashtron, that's a funny one too, Windblade, which we all know where that went, and Wraith. And then the gender choices, male or female. The origin, you had a choice of Kaon, Iacon, Athile, Hicks, Callus, and Prax. And then the specialty would be combat medic, bodyguard, recon, telepath, or close combat specialist. So obviously we know the choice was Windblade. We know that the choice was female. The origin was Kaon, and the specialty ability was the telepath thing, which they kind of instead they twisted it to make it her city speaker. That's what she
Yeah.
kind of ended up being in the end, which kind of plays into her telepath ability. And the results were they were shown at BotCon, and I believe it was BotCon. I want to say BotCon 2015 or 14. I think it was 2014. And it was during the product preview panel they showed us the final results and what she actually looked like, and we all how she was kind of an homage to uh, the the face of Ninjaga or whatever. Oh my God, this brings me back like it was a whole crazy thing. And ultimately in the end, I remember when the news broke for this, right away, a lot of the hater fans were going like, "Oh, she's just ending up being like every female Starscream fan character that has existed up to this point." And
Mhm.
I mean, in all honesty, I love the character of Windblade. I think she's a healthy addition to Transformers, and I think that she's one of the few fan vote things that have still resonated up to this point since 2013. Where afterwards, like the fan votes moving forward were kind of less of an impact. Like in 2015, they did the fan vote where they wanted to do a combiner, and it was this kind of the same thing where they asked a whole bunch of different things, and the ultimate result was Victorian.
Right.
And Victorian, while she was featured in the comics and stuff like that, and she got her figure, and she also appeared in the Transformer mobile games here and there. In general, she she hasn't really shown up anywhere else. Like, where Windblade has been in a lot of other medias. She's been in the Machinima stuff. She's been in the new Robots in Disguise 2.0 series. She's going to be in Cyberverse. She's had a bunch of different toys of different scales made of her. Victorian really just kind of had that one toy box set released. She appeared in the mobile games on a limited capacity.
And the show, no?
And the Machinima show, yes.
Yeah.
But nothing in anything outside of that bubble, though. So she's something that I'm actually, curious,
And she feels very, she's like more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, not valiant, but like justice, all about justice. It's like, okay,
well, you know what? And the funny,
calm it down there.
I find that I'm not personally a fan of Victorian as a character. I'm not a fan of that color scheme. It's very garish. I know that when I did the voting for this, I remember part of my choices for it was I was like, okay, I want it to be an Autobot team because Decepticons have enough combiners already.
Yeah, exactly.
But I remember saying to myself, like, when I had the choices, it was like, okay, you have a choice to make an Autobot combiner team. It's going to be made of either jets, which in my mind, like, already been done, fire truck and motorcycle, already been done.
What?
And I love Defensor. He's my favorite combiner, but no. And the last one was truck and cars. And I was like, okay, something new and interesting could be done with this. And I was imagining like a really cool car and truck unique team that isn't the Stunticons.
Right.
You're right away seeing like what they would have done with repaints anyways, because they would have just repainted those molds anyhow and maybe retooled them slightly. Like if we would have got the truck and car choice, they would have just used the Menasor anyways.
Yeah.
And they would have just retooled it. But the point is that, I mean, I was kind of hoping for something a little different, and I mean, ultimately in the end we got Victorian, and I don't hate her completely, and I think the best thing to come of Victorian was later on they made Mega Empress, which was like the cool Decepticon version of her, which Sakamoto did the manga and stuff for, which I like that version way better. But I mean, And then in 2016 we had the voting.
Before we go off on that, I wanted to just quickly say, maybe in an alternate universe there would be a Transformer that was green and gold with the color scheme and named Castron.
Well, see, the funny thing is,
I think that would have been, and then his theme would be like Shane McMahon's theme. Here comes the money, or some stupidness like that. He could be sneaky,
Well,
or secret. Yeah, I would say sneaky or secretive.
I forget. I'm trying to remember the name. There was a mini-con. Let me just look him up quickly. There was a mini-con that turned into a taxi cab.
Oh, no, and I remember, way.
Yeah. What they did was, 1 second, I'm trying to remember, because I remember he was part of a set, and he had a very funny name.
A mini-con that is a taxi.
Oh, here we go. Okay, so I love his name.
Okay, hold on a second. Who is that mini-con picking up? I mean, if they're the same size as humans.
Well, yeah, so it's not only that, the name is great, too. So it was a taxi cab mini-con, and his name was Overcharge. And he's kind of based off of, like, the New York kind of taxi cabs.
Right.
And I just remember being, like, that was like the most clever name that Hasbro ever did. And it was just a repaint of the police car mini-con. But it was just very cleverly done.
Well, I mean, like if it's a Crown Royal, that's gonna be the
there you go, and a lot of taxi cabs have that light bar thingy on the roof, anyways. So if you repaint it a certain way, you could do it as a taxi cab, and it hasn't been done since. So a Castron, fan character.
That's when I saw that. When I saw that name, I was like, they could have just gone,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not they. They're actually listening to the votes.
Should have been Decepticon car. Let's see, that comes with a Cybertronian taser, just in case if he has to deal with some hoodlums who don't pay for their ride.
Great. What's wrong, Swindle? It's my cousin, Castron.
Yeah.
Hey guys, what's up?
Gold and green, and of course he has to be sneaky because he's never actually taken you to where he asks you to take you to. So name would be Castron. We'll make him male. He's from obviously Kaon, I guess. And specialty, let's see, medic, bodyguard, recon. I guess close combat specialist, because when you're in a taxi cab, it's close quarters. I don't know.
But yeah, he'll use his nunchucks to like choke you out or something.
Or nunchucks. You see, that's the thing. Usually a taxi driver would have like a baseball bat or something, but they don't have that there.
I feel these like sections here are good for like Transformers Mad Libs or something like that, you know?
No, it's just it's interesting how
you pick them out, and then you pick 2 out, and then you have to make like a little scene with it, and boom.
For people that want to also see the list that we're looking at, one thing you could, if you just Google Transformers fan poll, I guess you could go to the TF Wiki, but the TF Wiki's one is kind of incomplete in total. I don't know why they've never updated it, but it's one place you could look for it. I know there's other places too, but that's like a quick go-to.
Yeah,
but if you're looking for other stuff, the TF Wiki's kind of, I don't know. Anyone who's listening from the TF Wiki, like, you guys haven't updated this thing since 2016, so yeah, get on it. But speaking of 2016, one of the other Transformer fan votes, which you won't see here on the wiki here, was in 2016. One of the votes also was you were supposed to vote for what would be the next Titan figure. And the next Titan figure in that case was they were going to do a choice of Trypticon, Omega Supreme, or Scorponok. Now, we know who won. It was Trypticon, but I found it really interesting that Omega Supreme made that list, because that was one that it's like, oh, that IP recently expired. The last time it was used, if I remember correctly, was probably the Energon line.
Right.
They didn't even use it. They didn't use it in Creo. They didn't use it in Bot Shots, or some of those other lines where normally they would throw a name in. It expired, and when they put it there, I was like, oh, I don't even know if that one's even going to get used, even if they did, because then they'd have to re-register it again. Actually, you know what? I take it back. They did use Omega Supreme when they did a reissue. I think it was one of the Year of figures. It was like the Year of the Horse, Year of this.
They didn't do a toy for the video game? I guess not, huh?
No, they didn't. They didn't.
Okay.
And I think that's probably the Year of one was probably the closest thing to something to relate to that. Was they probably did it for during the time of War for Cybertron.
Right.
There were so many third-party ones that we kind of get lost in all of that. But yeah, so in the end, Trypticon won that one. For 2017, they did who would be the next Matrix bearer, which is what we're dealing with now with the Power of the Primes line. And what was interesting about that one was how the choices broke down, and a lot of people weren't aware of like how diverse that one was it also had like multiple rounds where first you had to choose which round which would move forward. So you had one group that was called Honor, which had Ultra Magnus, RC, and Hound. Then you had a second group called Order, which was Shockwave, Megatron, and Starsaber. And then you had a third round, which was called Chaos, which was, Thunderwing, Optimus Primal, and an unknown evil, which was clearly Deathsaurus from Transformers Victory. I guess maybe they just didn't have the rights to the name, so they didn't want to dedicate to a title yet. Right. If it wouldn't win, why register it? But that being said, looking at this before we know in the end Optimus Primal won, but looking at it, it's like, imagine if like Honor went the full 9 yards and then Hound won or something, or RC, like two characters that really aren't of that leadership note. Everyone else here on this list, even Thunderwing, has some kind of leadership background in Transformers mythos, where both RC and Hound really have, there's nothing of that capacity. Like RC, even like when she's ever been in a group of like even the female Autobots, it's always been Elita 1 that was the leader character and stuff. Right. So, and Hound, he was a scout at most. Like that's never come up in his fiction. So it was those were the two really interesting ones that were on there. And I always found it weird, the whole thing with like the Chaos and Order stuff and what that really tied into. It might have had something to do with the story later on, which we might encounter, right. But they never really elaborated on that. So ultimately, in the end, the Chaos category won, and then you had to then decide between Thunderwing, Optimus Primal, and the Unknown Evil, and obviously Optimus Primal won in the end and won the voting overall. And the one we're going into this year, which we've discussed multiple times on the podcast, and I mean, we don't really need to talk about it again, but it was the War for Cybertron one with the pairings of the characters, and we know ultimately in the end who won. So that's nothing new. But yeah, this day in history, we were given our first taste of creating Windblade.